back to the Walk Weekly Podcast's Friday Live. It's been a couple of weeks. I hope everybody, and I trust everybody, had a great holiday weekend. All right, and my name is Walter Latham, and I am your host, and I'm joined by your co-host, Michelle Sweeney McCombs. You know, we're privileged today and happy to meet a group of people that are actually on the front line in our communities of color. And I'm talking about our African American communities. It is one thing to say you have a solution or an idea, but if you don't execute on it, then it's pointless. These people execute every day, they're out there every day. So we want to honor them and appreciate them. So let's get on with the show. And Michelle's going to take this over and introduce the people. But I do want to say, they tell us about their battle in the community because these people are on the ground. They are foot soldiers. And I'm very proud of what I've read about them. And now we're going to try to go into some detail. But I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. Michelle?
Hey, Walter, thank you, and welcome to the Walt Weekly Friday Live. We appreciate our audience, our live audience coming in, and we would love for you to share this podcast by clicking on the bottom share button. The Walt Weekly Friday Live is brought to you by Beauty Blends by Ami, Soap and Love, and Michelle Sweeney here. Our intro and outro music is provided by Uncle Nephew. Our panel members are also in the audience and also on the call. We have Ernest J. Robinson out of Washington, D.C. He's a Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, senior consultant at B. Ernest Leadership and Professional Consultant. We also have the Honorable Gene Anthony Edwards, Male District Leader of the 79th District in the Bronx. We also have Gregory Coleman out of North Carolina. He's COO of Illumination Media and Technology Engineer at the Walt Weekly. Thank you, panel members, for joining us. And we also have a new panel member. This is her second show with us, poet and author Judy Andrews out of Brooklyn, New York. Tonight, we have special guests joining us who will talk about their organization called Neighborhood Benches Incorporated, located in the Bronx, New York. They have 3 missions that they will share with us: mentoring, practice, and to build leaders. Let me introduce the team behind this organization. Founder and President William M. Evans. And next we have Daniel Osario, Director of Projects. Thank you all for joining the Walt Weekly Friday Live. Let's give our organization some love, Walter. All right. Thank you, guys. I also want to point out, thank you. I also want to point out the founder and president, William, is a board member at NYAGV, Public Allies of New York, Peace Starts Now, co-founder of Never Be Caged, and member of Restorative Roots and Collaborative. So, Walter, I'm going to hand it back to you. But first, I would like Daniel and William to give a little brief background of who they are. Thank you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm sure there's some slight white noise behind me. I can't control that, but just thank you for allowing us to be able to have this discussion on this platform that's being provided for us. Before I proceed, I would like to hand the floor over to William first, who is my mentor, and I will gladly follow after him thereafter.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. How you guys doing? Thank you for having us on this Friday. You know, people could be anywhere else, but for those that are listening to us, I thank you as well. So I'm William Evans, a black boy raised up in the South Bronx out of the Andrew Jackson houses. As many of us, I grew up in poverty, oppressed community where a lot of violence and drugs was taking over the community. During during the early '80s. You know, I learned how to fend for myself and make ends meet by packing bags and sweeping up here in the barbershop. It wasn't until I was falsely arrested um, during my teenage years where I was making a delivery for packing bags. I was making a delivery to a building that was infested in drugs, and on my way out back to the supermarket, I was arrested. So at that point, I lost hope for like believing in the criminal justice system. I had to sit up for about a week. You know, at that age, it wasn't a pleasant thing for me to be doing. I was eventually released, but as a result of that arrest, um, even though although I was the case was thrown out as a result of that arrest, I had to be removed from my grandmother's apartment where it was 15 of us. Some of our mothers died, some fathers was locked up. So my grandmother was taking care of me. I was living under her roof. As a result, at the age of 15, I could no longer be there, or the whole family had to leave. So I had to make a choice with running the streets. At by age of 16, same building, I was shot. I accidentally shot in the neck, and I always harbored anger because of the loss of my mother, my father not being around and being shot and arrested at that time. So you know, growing up in Andrew Jackson's, I found a way to believe in those that was trying to make a way for us. Whether that was them trying to coach us, mentor us, running us off so we could go to school, you know, picking us up for free lunch. Um, I've found mentoring and a good mentor mentee relationship with a lot of brothers and sisters out of the neighborhood. And many of them was doing wrong, right? But I knew that I had to find some type of way out. But it wasn't until my later years, after being shot and dropping out of school, where I learned that I had to do something else because I had sisters in my ear that was going to college, so I had to do something different because they always believed in me, never gave up on me. And eventually, I wound up going back to undergrad, earning my GED as well as my bachelor's degree. But then again, before actually making it out, completing that 4 year college in my last year, I was wrongfully arrested in Harlem. Had to sit up for 11 months. And after the 11 months, I went to trial. The case was thrown out. The officers perjured themselves in various levels of the case. And then maybe soon I got out, I went right back to college. And from there, I never looked back. Today, I'm in possession of my master's degree. I enrolled in a PhD program. And as you all mentioned, I'm the founder of Neighborhood Benches, co-founder Never Be Caged. I sit on the board for New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, Public Allies, and currently in a position where I'm teaching at a college, the new school, the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, which is under the Center for New York City Affairs. So that's me in a nutshell.
You talking about hard knocks and credentials, man. I commend you from where you came, and what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing, William.
Thank you.
I am astonished. I'm in awe. I don't know whether I could have come from that, even though I used to sleep on the train and sleep on Port Authority myself when I first came to New York.
I know that feeling.
I was telling Michelle when we were discussing you, I said, William ain't got nothing on me, you know what I mean? But, I jest, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I jest. I think you got a little more. You've been shot. I haven't. Yeah.
That, man.
Yeah.
This is a prime example of you live and you learn. If the system ain't working for you, you got to make it work for you.
There you go. There you go. And you're right there. You got your hands right in the sauce right now, man. And as I was saying earlier, we appreciate that. I want to move on to exactly what neighborhood benches, what their mission and their mandate is. But I do want to just speak to Daniel quickly. Daniel, do you want to speak quickly after William?
Sure, absolutely. Um, as mentioned, my name is Daniel Sorio. I'm the director of projects for this organization. I as well grew up in Andrew Jackson houses. Um, the son of an immigrant from Cuba and a Puerto Rican woman from Harlem, New York. I have an older brother, and growing up, late '80s, early '90s. Also, we faced the exact same elements as William did. As a matter of fact, William and I grew up together. I known him my whole life pretty much. So, I was witness to some of the encounters that he've encountered, and then of course had my own encounters within the same vicinity of the development. Um, I would say, really early as well, we faced the economic hardship. My mother did not have employment, obviously survived off of the city. And my brother at the time, he had employment, so he had funds coming in. And around 1997, my brother had his first child, and obviously, he has to transition and find another way to support him and his child and his lady at the time, and therefore left the house in an economic hardship. So I had to figure out what was I going to do, and obviously, school is always number one priority, but also being able to survive and eat and pay the rent is also equally as important. So what I did was I took kind of a part-time job, and I'm kind of speeding through somewhat. And me and William have the same encounters with the when Wall Bounds opened up in 161st Street here in the Bronx. That was like my first means of earning money at like 8, 9 years old. That's when they allowed it to, you was allowed to work the supermarkets and stuff like that. And there's a gentleman from our neighborhood who's like the neighborhood entrepreneur. And I'll refrain from saying names, but he used to sell videos, and he would do door to door knocking on doors and things like that. So very young, I understood the concept of earning money and things like that. Eventually leading up to the point that, when my brother had his first child and there was no more funding coming really in the house, I had to figure it out. And, kind of got my first job while doing school, but then, the job becomes more of a demand over everything else. And little by little, eventually you have, dropping out of school. And of course, somewhat turned into the streets, to just to, make ends meet and be able to survive, and hiding it from my mother, and she obviously didn't have, she understood that there was money coming in from me working, but she didn't understand I was making side money as well as street money. And so I had encounters also with the law, nothing to the extent of doing serious time, but of course being detained periodically just to be able to provide for the house. And
Right.
so moving forward, got on track. I stood within the realm of working pretty much. The neighborhood was going through a lot of federal indictments, and God is good. He protected me from that, and I seen the neighborhood go through immense transitions in that process. So I had to make a decision whether or not I'm going to continue to maneuver in this formality, or transition to something much greater, in which I did so. And in that process of doing so, encountered individuals who did very well for themselves and took their mentorship indirectly, and moved in a place where I could be able to have the mental stability of providing the correct way, as opposed to what the streets could only lead you to. And years later, I actually hadn't seen William in some years, and we were friends on Facebook, and I seen that he had started the organization that we're currently in now, Neighborhood Ventures, and I knew very little of it at the time. And so because of my advocacy work for community and what I do, it was kind of up my alley, and I reached out to him, and then of course we reacquainted. And 5, 6 years down the line, we're here now having this conversation on this platform. So that's my story in a nutshell, if you will. And just glad to be here to have this dialogue with you guys.
Thank you, well, Daniel. It's so happy. I'm going to give you a shout out for that. Right here, you go. There you go. Yeah, that's for you, man. Y'all guys are tough. That's my
Amazing. Thank
definition
you.
of tough, you guys. All right. So I got now. This is for both of you. William first, I guess. All right. Could you tell our listeners about the mission of Neighborhood Ventures? I know we mentioned, what we were able to extrapolate from research, but we want to hear it from you. So, William, can you take that?
Okay, so the mission of Neighborhood Ventures is to provide the tools to the young people and adults and underrepresented communities that will prevent youth violence and youth incarceration.
Okay.
That's our mission in a nutshell. There are various things that we do to achieve that mission, right? To accomplish those goals, and we do it in levels. So we always explain to people that we do it on a neighborhood level, borough level, and a citywide level.
Okay. So those are your three tiers, then, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Daniel, I know you had a projects, and I guess you develop them and you implement them. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So basically, what we do, as we have mentioned, is we do these formalities and tiers, and there's numerous tools of the trade that we utilize to accommodate the process. So therefore, we can create young leaders in their transition. As the director of projects, what I do is I kind of create the artistic understanding of methods of of usage. So, for example, we use the term project as a physical thing, but project is
Right.
also the mental development as well, and coming up with creative ways to allow the young adults to adhere to the understanding of the conversation. We have to be very strategic because we also dealing with personalities. We're dealing with a younger demographic who may have never had what you would consider to be a
Yeah, Daniel, we lost you.
somewhat form comes within the process of being creative, you know, and
Oh, okay. It's
yeah,
pausing out. Go ahead.
she kept. So I don't know what you guys missed, but it's the creative aspect of putting thoughts and processes together. I kind of lead that, but we do it as a collaborative. Like there's no I in this formality, because in order for us to gain the success that we look for development, we have to have a discussion and figure out methods and ways to reach out and touch them.
Yeah. And if you may, can I add to that as well?
Okay, definitely.
Okay. So so we understand, right? And thank you for that, Daniel, too, right? So we understand that it's not a method of one size fit all, right? So we have the neighborhood relations services, which we have a program which for leaders leadership league, where we grab individuals from the corners, individuals that we know who may have been in a less fortunate position, um could have been that they was gunslingers, hustlers, thieves, dropped out of school, whatever it is, and we grab them up and we allow them to shadow us in the field, just showing them that 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 we went down the same path and we could sit at tables and make decisions as well. So through our shadowing process, we allow them to come with us to meetings. We allow them to sit at the table to help us design programs, and we allow them to accompany us to do to do out to do outreach as well, right? So for the individuals that that we grab and we take into the field, they understand the importance of our work, and they respect it. And some may use profanity as a first choice of words without actually knowing their role. So through the shadowing process, we allow them to acknowledge the importance of that code switching and understanding how they relate to different parties. And that's just through our neighborhood relations services where we're actually doing outreach to grab individuals from the neighborhood. And then we have the neighborhood school teaching practicum where we partner with colleges in either design in partnership with the school and or the professors, the curriculum, where 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 we also add experiential learning piece where the student who may be thinking about being a social worker and never been inside the housing developments can now walk into housing development and understand the real behavior of people and understand how to build relationships and at the same time have to tie it in as a life arts project for their final grade, right? So we do this with a variety of schools. Lehman College is the college that we started out with. Then you have the graduate school of public health, which are master students. We take students all the way from Claremont College, Claremont University in California to Greensboro in North Carolina, and the list goes on. And we do that just to be able to connect our neighborhood kids with college students, right? So they can understand that if they could touch it, they can believe in it and they could achieve it. Then then you have our advocacy work where we're actually partnering with different advocates that's out there fighting for justice, whether it's incarceration, or mass incarceration, poor education, violence, and we make sure that people understand that these people here can also advocate for these same issues through experiences and be an impact as a member of that community. So using these different pillars is the way that we achieve the goals that we achieve, and that's how we get the recognition that we get. In 2016, when we actually launched our first pilot, like the Department of Mental Health, you had different other organizations that reached out to us so we could help them with a variety of projects, whether it was mentoring or whether it was just launching something that they have in mind. But then I also, as a founder, and applied for Echo and Green, helping them understand that the way we identify leaders is by walking through some of the most dangerous neighborhoods that they may never get the chance, or other organizations or other individuals may never get a chance to actually go into. And we identify leaders, people who have the potential to lead, and we pull them in and allow them to shadow us and help them understand the work that we do by mentoring kids, designing programs, making sure that we are building a community of care. So during that process, when I applied to Echo and Green, it was about like 3,000 applications from around the world. You talking about from Uganda, from different places in Africa, from Puerto Rico, different applications, different ideas. And out of the 3,000 applications, I was one of the 34 to be acknowledged for the understanding of what neighborhood benches bring to communities to have a social impact. So I just wanted to add that just so the audience could understand that the work that we are doing, the work that we identify with, is acknowledged around the world, and we need to continue to push for change in our neighborhood because somebody is watching from somewhere.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. Now we do have a panel, all right, and I do want them to chime in. What I was trying to do is lay the groundwork for the panel so that when they did ask questions, we would have, passed the part about how you started, what you do, and where you are right now. Okay, and we're gonna talk about the future in a little bit. But I want to turn it over to members of the panel if they have any questions so far. So whoever's ready, and we have 4 panel members, man. They range from a sergeant, a Marine sergeant, to a published poet. So those are the people on the panel. And so they're very diverse, very experienced, and we're fortunate on the Walt Weekly podcast to have them. Okay, so let's start, guys. Who's ready?
Well, I have a question. This is Judy. I taught for 27 years in the public school system, and I had a lot of children who had serious problems, in terms of mental illness as well as just struggling academically. You have adult. This question could be for Mr. Osorio or Mr. Evans. You have adult programming, school partnerships, youth programming, and neighborhood partnerships. What has been your most difficult challenge in obtaining them, and what has been your greatest joy?
I guess I'll start. Um, well, let me commend you for the amount of time that you've done the work and dealing with
Thank you.
a very difficult population. Um, but to kind of address that in a sense, in New York City and in urban environments, there's a lot of undiagnosed mental health individuals that we accommodate and we come across regularly. And I think that one of the elements of why this work is effective, and I might steer off a little bit, I just wanted to just kind of tap into this, is because the amount of individuals that we recognize that have a difficulty in their environments and difficulty um, um, being able to function, and you see the incarceration rate is very, very high, is because of the mental health illness that exists that is undiagnosed. We have partnered with a city agency, Thrive New York, who has accommodated us with the utensils to idealistically recognize and have dialogue with individuals, neighborhood individuals, regular folk, to see how we can kind of get the concept that there is underlying things that exist that need to be addressed. In order for us to understand the people, we got to understand somewhat of their background. And many individuals, even us on this platform, have some formality of mental anguish. Whether it be severe or very light that we deal with, but undiagnosed because we choose not to. But we recognize it in adolescence because, and I'm no psychiatrist, and let me just get that out the way, but we recognize it through their behaviors, and the behaviors is what uh, we we tend to see the backdraft, which was now with the incarceration and the inability to have coping mechanisms with their self, anger and severity. So this is why neighborhood benches had become so effective, because we had also trained with a mental health services to provide that kind of planning so that we could be effective when we tap into those worlds. Because we may never know that this individual or these individuals have these difficulties, but in order for us to know that, we have to have some kind of conversation. And that's how we can kind of determine whether or not we could be effective or not. I don't know if that answered the question, but I just want us to tap into that world.
Yes, yes, you did. That's very challenging dealing with, children who have not been diagnosed. Sometimes the parents don't even know that the children haven't been diagnosed. And the only way that teachers know is when we see it in their behavior. Usually, when we begin in September, we don't get their individual education plan called an IEP for special education students until somewhere around December. And then we have one more month before they move on to another class. So it's very difficult to determine which child needs the help. And I think that should come first before academics, because they can't function in the classroom unless their mental health is addressed. So thank you very much for you as well as Mr. Osorio doing the work that you're doing.
Great
All right.
question,
Thank you,
Judy.
Judy. I want to go to Gene because Gene brought us together. If it wasn't for Gene, the neighborhood benches would not be on this show. So I want to first thank Gene. And Gene, do you have any questions for William and Daniel?
Yes. Uh, no, I don't have any questions. I'll leave it up to the panel. I just pretty much brought them on here so they could, basically have a platform to talk about the organization and a lot of the great works that they do here in the South Bronx and in Harlem. I don't know because I've been going in and out of the broadcast, bad signal. I don't know if William and Daniel talked about that neighborhood benches is part of the New York City Summer Youth Employment Program. So they're actually putting money into the pockets of these young people and teaching them responsibility. And when I say that they're grassroots level, uh, I am not being facetious. All right, pun intended. And what I mean by that is, last summer Daniel was showing young people with a shovel and a bag of mulch how to turn over the earth and put mulch down to preserve the soil and the trees. He was showing them how to, take care of the lawn and things like that. So, they are grassroots in every sense of the word. And thank you to them. We have 3 food pantries operating within the 79th Assembly District. We have 2 hot to go meals every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. And on Saturdays, we operate an open air grocery store free. It's like going to the grocery store and shopping for free. And it's all in part to the men and women from Neighborhood Benches. And I enjoy working with them. And we shall continue. And we're going to bring in more money and more resources. And we're going to blow this thing up because everybody needs to know about Neighborhood Benches. And with that, I'll digress.
That's fabulous. The Bronx is hot. They're doing so many community activities. Hopefully you can branch out to everybody.
Yeah, they're national now, based on what William was telling us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, they go coast to coast.
Right. Ernest, do you have anything you'd like to ask or give?
If I may, real quickly, Eugene mentioned in reference to us partnering up with SYEP. Throughout the last few years or so, basically, some city agencies like New York City Housing, NYCHA, and other in private sector, they usually take along summer youth kids to gain them employment, and with the hopes of also, allowing them to have their very first income coming in, the early responsibility duties and things of that nature. And in 2017, 17 and 18, Neighborhood Benches partnered up with SYEP, and on the same grounds that we do the work, which is New York City Housing, NYCHA, NYCHA was only able to accommodate summer youth employment for 6 kids on the development, and that's in between 2 different divisions within a consolidated neighborhood, which is Morris Senior Air Rights Consolidated, and also Andrew Jackson Houses. They're a consolidated entity under the same management at NYCHA. And they were only able to accommodate roughly 6 kids for their summer youth program. Neighborhood, those years, at one time, accommodated over 162 kids on the development, doing and gaining employment for these young individuals at one time. So we spread them out between Morris Senior, Andrew Jackson's, and our Harlem location on 146th Street, West 146th Street, between 7th and 8th at Clinkscale Park. And we was able to provide over 160 of these kids at one time throughout those summers employment under the SYEP program. So, it is unheard of for a grassroots organization to even take on such a load. But because our mission is to really protect and make sure that we save lives in the interim, we have to make sure that we're able to take the load, that we're going to be there and make sure that they're able to be able to provide for themselves as well. So, Gene, thank you for bringing that up. So I just wanted to tap into that.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Ernest, you got the floor if you're ready, sir. Greg, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'll step in if hey, this is Greg. One of the things that stands out to me, first of all, I gotta commend both of you gentlemen and this organization, because it's amazing to me. It's unbelievable, and I don't think we can applaud it enough. One of the things that stands out to me about the organization is that I know we label it outreach, but to me, it's more like organically grown in reach. I mean, you guys were born in that neighborhood, and when I say it's organically grown, you're products of that neighborhood, and you're empowering the same neighborhood you grew up in a unique way. I mean, so many outreach programs that come in and might give folks in the area food, or even there's organizations out there that give them ways to grow their own food, find them jobs in order to continue to provide food for themselves and their family. But to me, it's another thing when you take it to a level of not only are you doing all of that, but you're growing leaders. So now, like yourselves, you're growing people that can show others how to eat, how to gain employment, how to be responsible, to the community. So that hits it in so many different levels. I'm somebody that's been involved in outreach, in one way or another for years, and I've been the recipient of outreach on a number of occasions. So I see it from both directions. That's why, it's amazing, and much applause, William, Daniel, for what you're doing. My question would be, is there any time, and I know, when I'm involved in outreach, one of the things that frustrates me the most is I go in with a mindset of wanting to save everybody. How do you combat, uh, and both of you can jump in and ask the questions, how do you combat the frustration sometimes, because I know your heart is in this, of not being able to save everybody? And that's one of the things I battle when I'm involved in outreach. So I'd love to know how both of you gentlemen handle that when it comes up, and if it comes up.
All the time, all the time. Thank you for that question, because that's a important question. Um, one one thing that we grew to understand is that there's a difference between practice-based evidence and evidence-based practice, right? And we've noticed, right, because our model was based on just servicing um, public housing, which is New York City Housing Authority, right? Because we grew up in the projects, we knew that the projects was cut off from a variety of resources and people who have the power because they hold degrees, right? Most people graduate, they leave, they get a job and they leave. Some come back, but not enough. So we knew that we couldn't save everyone, right? So I said, right, in one of our first meetings, is that we have to learn to give 5%. Because if we give any more than 5%, then we are enabling people, right? We have to allow them to come out and practice with us, teach us as we're teaching them. So then they can feel as though that they created and developed something that they own. So in most of our cases, we have individuals who caught on quick, right? And acknowledge that this is something that they want to do, or they may want to do it in a different capacity, right? And we have to respect that, right? We know of individuals that we worked with that were so caught up in a life where the work that we was providing to them did not get a chance to sink in at the time, right? But for some who got caught up in the system, got locked up, or was violated with violence, they return to us and say, you know what? I remember everything you taught me, and I started doing this. Or I just had a child, I started working, or I returned to school. For us, that's our success story, because we are able to plant the seed in someone to allow them to think, right? And I think that's most important than anything. And that's why when we designed the program, like for those that don't know, neighborhood benches been actually functioning from the benches for 2.5 years without having an office space or anything. We knew that we had to design programs that fit a particular neighborhood, and that the members of the neighborhood had to carry that program all the way through with our support when needed. So just being able to plant that seed, knowing that people acknowledge the need for our support and our services, that was something that trickled throughout neighborhood. So we already knew that most people won't catch on really, really quick, because we're so used to going into a community center right? But we also learned that young people fear going into a community center where they don't know what's waiting for them outside. So we allow the people to see the
Mm,
transition of ourselves and our students outside. So everything we did was outside. Whether we was teaching lessons and students had the right, we would bring out benches, bring out chairs, we'd sit on a basketball court, and the neighborhood can see us. So now you can see the students that's trying to do something different that's from the same neighborhood you're from. And then you can ask questions, you could join, or you can just sit by and watch.
right.
But being able to plant that seed within our students and the bystander allow us to acknowledge the power of planting the seed.
Okay. All
Absolutely.
right.
Yes, he's having technical difficulties. You can go
Okay.
ahead, Daniel.
All
Oh,
righty.
just wanted to mention also the, to reiterate the question. That of course, there is always going to be an element of frustration in this demographic of work. Um, we can't sit here as an organization and portray as if everything goes our way, because that'd be a bold-faced lie. However, the element of success within this demographic is, um, how do you view success? Success could be, well, I successfully was able to accommodate, 80% out of 100, and they're on a plateau. But there may also be the other element of success with individuals where you have just that one. Like that one is a success because that was one less person who fell victim to the streets. That was one less individual who fell victim to the possibilities of becoming incarcerated and becoming a statistic. That's one person. So we the mission and goal of this is to do not give up on the individual. Like, for the amount of years we've been doing this, we try our best to follow up on as many as we can to see what is the outcome, because we got to remember, these are young adults, and at some point they will become full adults, and of course they'll start to live their life. There is no real limitation to this work, as far as age is concerned, because you can still protect and prevent someone from going down that path as an adult. So everyone kind of needs accommodation, and because us, as what we're known as credible messengers, we're able to have the dialogue because we've had the past experience to be able to have this conversation. That's almost like the equivalent to someone who works in substance abuse. The best counselor in the world is one who has been a victim of substance abuse. As opposed to someone who came out of grad school and read theoretic information and said, this is the way to do something. No. The experience of you going through it is the ones who are the most, who will be the most successful in that element of line of work. So us in this line of work, we're all credible messengers, and we've all had some kind of interaction, whether it be in our past or current, so that we're able to provide the information and provide the tools and supplies for the individual with the hopes of getting the outcome that we're looking for. But it's not going to be immediate. It's going to be in steps in duration. And we have to be patient to recognize that if we continue to follow up, usually that hard individual softens up and he adheres to you and he's willing to open up. And as a matter of fact, they actually get very, very deep with us that they wouldn't get, from a professional psychiatrist. They actually become very deep with us because we understand each other's language. We move the same, we portray the same, and with us being open, that allows them to adhere to us, and then we can kind of get in what we need from them and usually develop them in between there. So even if we can get one and develop that one, that's one less person that becomes victim to the streets.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a question for you in terms of how you guys measure success, rather. But I think you answered that, so I don't have to go to that one. But I do want to talk about from a point of view as to what are your thoughts regarding the rise in shootings in the neighborhood, in our neighborhoods. And what are your thoughts?
I just want to add something that I think that's real important, right? In
All
regards
right.
to so I it's see, like when we talk about gun violence, right? Just being a victim of it and knowing how it happened and how it continuously happened throughout my growth, my childhood, my adulthood. Um, it's a different spin to it when it's televised, right? And and for many of the people that we encounter, this is not anything new, right? It's just being it's just being it's just it's just it's just that since pure violence been developed and different restorative practices been utilized, they talk about it more, right? And and when we identify individuals from the neighborhood, some of them their previous career was being violent with guns. Some of them some of them have children. Some of them are parents, and the conversation is different when we're having it with them. But but yes, is gun violence a problem? Yes, gun violence is a problem. That's one of the reasons why I took on the opportunity to join New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, right? But that's also the reason that I took the co-director role to to um to be the co-director at the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, where they're training, where they're developing credible messengers in this professional space to go out there and be violent interrupters, to go out there and be mentors, right? Because that community need to continue growing, right? And when I hear them talking about gun violence, right, and I hear them talking about the the intervention, right, and it puzzles me
Okay.
because we sit down with a group that talk about prevention, right? The news talk about the the intervention, and then we have groups that's on the ground that's talking about prevention, right? What are we doing prior to this happening?
Right.
Why do we address it after the fact? Let's get out there and develop programs, show community members how to develop programs so they have no time than to act in something so senseless and so negative, right? So yes, when I see the news, it tears me up for two different reasons, right? Because I know this is something that's been happening for a very long time. I was at 16 when I got shot. Then I know that there's another conversation going on with credible messengers and restorative justice practitioners where they're talking about the healing process and how you transform a community, right? And for me, I look at the importance of transforming a community, right? So prime example, when Neighborhood Benches is in a community, right? Out of the 15, 16 developments that we're in, right? The 14 different neighborhoods, people know what Neighborhood Benches represent. So we are not strangers, and the people that's moving with us are not strangers. The credible messengers out there are not strangers. The restorative justice practitioners are not strangers. So we're having a different conversation than what the media is having around gun violence, right? And I just wish that was advertised more, right? Because yes, gun violence is a problem, but talk more about what's building community. Because when you are advertising the gun violence more than you advertise the positive things that's taking place in community by community members, you're desensitizing people and you're making people think that this is the only thing that exists. So as a result, you have less young people going in the right direction because they believe that this is taking over the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, apparently, because I believe Governor Cuomo said it's a state of emergency.
Yes.
I mean, you can't get any a harder label than that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So they're taking the negatives, and as you said, I mean, y'all guys are being proactive, all right? And what we see on the news is reactive,
Yes.
and we have to understand that. You know, they don't look through. You know, they don't look at these shootings through the prism that you do.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that you and Daniel do because you're from there. You know that area. They don't.
Yes.
They're looking from the outside in.
Yes.
So I do want to thank you for shedding some light on that to let people know that you got white producers and all these type of people that never set foot in these neighborhoods, and they're making all these comments, and it's just on a wire, and that's what they're showing on the news. So thanks a lot, William, for bringing that, elaborating on that.
Walter,
Yeah,
this is Gene.
yeah, Jane.
Talking about, just to add on about the frustration topic and the gun violence and low-income communities of color. Last week was the first day. Last Saturday was the first day that we operated the open-air grocery store, the open-air market. And the rain was off and on, then the sun came out, thank God. And, seniors and, parents and children, they were coming with their shopping carts to, get some food. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Daniel can attest to this because he did further investigation, we heard 6 shots. Somebody got shot in the foot, 6 shots, and one hit him in the foot. And this is at 4 in the afternoon, right? Kids are outside, seniors are outside. Now, just imagine if I would have invited the local news to, do a segment on what we were doing in the South Bronx. Let's say I have Bronx 12 or New York 1 there, and they're doing an interview with Daniel, or doing an interview with William, or doing an interview with myself, and then in the background you hear pop, 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 pop. I mean, what does that tell people? It's so egregious, some of the violence around here. And so that's where the frustration kicks in. Every time you think that you're making strides forward, there's always somebody that's going to come and try to disturb all of the goodness that you're trying to do. So that's the frustration, trying to separate, the bad actors from the people in the community that want better for themselves. Because just because somebody is low income doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're low income. They don't want the violence in their community no more than, wealthy people living in Scarsdale don't want violence in their community. So that's the frustration for me as an elected official. And with that, I'll digress.
All right, thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Just really quick. I don't want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be labeled this topic, but for example, that day that the honorable spoke about, the immediate intention, and this is the difference with individuals who are not in this work. The immediate intention is to, because we don't have bulletproof vests, we also do not carry a legalized firearm. Well, we do this based off of our principle. And so the immediate intention is for me to go and grab my son. That's number one, because he was out in the playground, right? And he's a young boy. But then the second intention is to find out who's involved, what's going on, and how we can possibly, if we know the individual, reach out to say, hey, listen, what's going on? What's the purpose? Because most of the time when things like this happen, we kind of have an idea because we're from the neighborhood where it's coming from. The other element is we do not have a clue where it's coming from. And that's based off of the interaction in between the individuals of today. So the goal is to always to kind of tap into their world first and already know the plateau before it becomes a shooting incident, so we kind of have a perspective of where this is coming from. Of course, today, gun violence is out of control, but it was also out of control in the 70s and in the 80s and in the early 90s. However, at that time, there was non-existent organizations that have the capabilities and tools and utensils that we currently have today. And William mentioned earlier that, and which is true, and we are very aware of this, that the media has a mission. The mission of the media is to get the information out first. It doesn't necessarily have to be right. They just want to be first. So they would rather get the information as opposed to the other element which is organizations like ourselves and others that are in the line of duty equally as police officers, policing the neighborhoods on our own plateau. But those elements are never really displayed in the world, and therefore the accommodation for moving these organizations forward and hopefully providing them with additional funding doesn't exist because the rest of the world doesn't know that we exist. This community of violence interrupters, incredible messengers, we know of all of each other. But outside of that, unless you've applied for grants or what have you, is not familiar with this because the media does not shed the light on it. And I think that is something that we, as a community within this work, need to also recognize and try to figure out how we could change the paradigm on that to make sure that the rest of, our urban world and other, individuals are aware that this work is actually taking place. While everyone is sleeping, you actually do have violence interrupters walking the neighborhood and touching the individuals who partake in those endeavors. Like they're there with discussions and trying to figure out how to bring peace in between the neighborhoods. So I just wanted to tap into that, just to follow up with both Gene and William on this conversation.
No, thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much, man. That was great. It gave us a lot of insight. Especially, that's all we hear. That drum beat of the violence is growing, and it's urban and blah 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 blah. Right. So thank you for shedding light on that. What I'd like to know is, what do y'all guys plan for the future? Any big projects coming down the pipeline that y'all guys are yet to roll out?
Oh man, a few. So the latest project that we designed is over in Harlem. Neighborhood Benches runs a shop over there, and it's titled Neighborhood Benches Design Your Future. And we realized that young people are into fashion. People, period, is into fashion. But then there's another discussion where we as people talk about buying black. And we realize not many young people have the opportunity to showcase their talents. So what we did was a way to help young people to design positive messages and utilize branding and marketing. At the same time, we allow them to utilize our space to design fashion, right? Design something that they believe that is fashionable, whether it's a logo, whether it's a symbol, whether it's a dress, whether it's a cap, whether it's a hoodie, and put it on our shelves, right? We realize that if young people are into fashion the way we see they are, right, and the fashion is so expensive, and they never believe that they can create their own fashion at a affordable price with a message behind it, they will always continue to fight for the hottest thing that costs the most money. In most cases, costs more than what their parents are paying rent. So we opened up a space in Harlem for young people to bring to life their ideas and put it into fashion.
Excellent.
Thank you. And at that space, they are only charged a membership fee. We also allow adults to come in and for everyone to sit at a round table to talk about fashion and put it to the test, right? We want this to be their first outlet for where we see Nike and Adidas and Alexander McQueen. We want this to be their first outlet to understand fashion marketing with a positive message. So that's our latest project that we're working on now.
Okay. One question I do have: how are y'all guys structured? I know we have the CEO, the executive director. How many people do you have working for you?
So we currently have 7 people. Everyone that's a part of Neighborhood Benches also work I will call it a 9 to 5, but everyone has have a second job. Um, and we go into neighborhoods and just pull people in through our neighborhood relation services. So it could vary depending on the people interest. So right now we have what we would call 22 volunteers, right, and that's just spread out through the different neighborhoods where they devote their time and energy without worrying about a salary because they're working at another job. And then we have board members, which is um um 4 board members and three advisory members that would just give insights to what they feel as though can be either the next project or the next ask.
Okay. All right. Now I want to turn it over to the panel before we move into close. Any questions for William or Daniel?
Yes, it's Judy again. I have a question. How do you gather your funding? Is it through grants, through volunteers, like the volunteers you just mentioned? Is it through partnerships? How do you maintain funding, and who are the people that would or that would normally donate?
Yes. Um. So I I take that.
Hmm.
So we have foundations. So one, we never utilize city funding, not once. So we've applied for grants. So we have grant writers on our team. We also work with a school that assists us with grant writing from time to time. So we write grants. Um, you may have someone contribute. Like for example, just um just Saturday, a sister traveled from Bermuda to Queens because she wanted to support us. So she donated $500 to have a back to school summer cookout. Right. So we have individuals like that will tap into our world, see our world, and want to support us. And that happens here and there, but the majority of our funding comes from foundations and partnerships.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So
Thank you.
we're bumping up against the clock. That's my signal that we're going to be ending and we're going to start closing the show. But I do, before I close, I want to really, really thank William and Daniel from Neighborhood Benches. I mean, y'all guys are. I mean, I have few words. It's hard for me to find a descriptive word to commend you guys on what you've been doing and what you are doing and where you're going. We need more like you, and I hope
Thank you.
the listeners will. The information on how to contact you will be posted on the show notes, and I think they're within the text here. But
Thank you.
we're definitely going to highlight you guys and try to get donors. And I mean, as I said, I mean, I really commend y'all guys on a great job that you're doing. We need a lot more people like you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
And this show is live, but it will be rebroadcast, recorded live on Sunday. We'll be pushing it out to our audio platforms, as Cheryl alluded to earlier, and it will go out on Sunday at 3 p.m. We'll go out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It will be free. It's free to listen to us. Free, totally free. Okay.
Let
So
me say
I'm
it
gonna turn it
again. It's
over to
free.
Michelle. Yeah, it's free. Yeah.
One
Yeah,
more
it's
time.
totally
It's
free.
free.
Yeah. But the value proposition, the
You ain't
value
gotta pay for
proposition,
it.
yeah, but the value proposition is learning. And what we try to do is
Right.
push out knowledge.
Hmm.
All right. And
Bringing awareness to the community.
exactly, exactly. So I'm gonna turn it over to my sis, Michelle Sweeney McCombs,
Yes.
to take us out.
Walter,
Yes, Gene. Go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
I have one last thing to say. Uh, this
Yes.
is what really got me excited about neighborhood benches. and all of their work and everything they stand for, as far as their platitudes on giving back to the community. Um, the seniors have been craving for a food pantry where I live,
Mm-hmm.
because the pandemic brought out a lot of food insecurities that people suffer from, and
Right.
people couldn't, and a lot of folks couldn't hide behind that. And with neighborhood benches, they reached out to me one day because they had an excess of food, and they said, "Hey, Gene, I want to bring a table and set it up in Concourse Village and bring some
Mm-hmm.
food over." And I said, "Great." And we did it one time as a pop up, and now it has gone from a
It's every
pop up
week. Mm-hmm.
to a constant. Okay, I didn't have to reach out to them. They saw a need in part of my community, and they brought the resources to me. That tells me that not only are they working in the community, they're also paying attention to where the needs need to be met. And I applaud those gentlemen on their foresight and their wisdom. So please, folks,
Absolutely.
donate to neighborhood benches and follow them and support them. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
William and Daniel, would you like to have any final words before we go off? I know I've been putting a lot of your information in the chat room, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, you have the opportunity to do that now.
I would just say that this is this is a very well received opportunity for us to be able to have this discussion. The work doesn't stop. We have so many people to save in so little time, and we have to be able to definitely utilize our time properly to be efficient and with the hopes of getting the outcome that we're looking for. Gene mentioned food insecurities. There's so much going on that you have to kind of have your finger in a little of everything to be able to save and help your community. And so by at least utilizing our resources and putting the grit on the floor to ensure that everybody, receives these benefits is nonstop. And that's why we go to other developments and create leaders there so that they as well can, mimic what we already have implanted. And hopefully moving forward, we could save.
Thank you. Like I was saying, yesterday I was dead, I was lost, I was forgotten, and today I'm alive because I'm blessed and I'm supported by so many people from community and folks like you guys. I just want people to understand that there's someone that made a mistake somewhere, somehow, who have the potential to lead. And you have to believe in those second, third, and fourth chances. But most importantly, believe in that first chance. Because that person that see that you have hope in them, you have belief in them, is going to be the same person you see tomorrow that's taking a leadership role.
All right.
Amen. Amen.
Great.
That's
great.
awesome. Daniel,
Yeah.
William, we appreciate you guys. You're definitely making your impact on the community, and we look forward to having you guys on the show again. Don't forget about the small people.
Not at
Right.
all.
We'll
Not at all.
definitely
Not at
we will
all.
promote you guys,
No,
on our pages. Yes, on the Walt Weekly Instagram and Facebook pages, and on our website and on the Podbean app. We will definitely promote you guys to try to get you some funding because you guys are doing a tremendous job, and we appreciate you. We honor you, and we salute you
Appreciate
guys.
that.
Thank you to our panel, and thank you to this live audience. You guys were on fire. I appreciate you guys for joining us on our Friday Live, giving up your evening, part of your evening for us. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Please go on the podcast and review all of our other previous shows that we have had. We've had people in the community, celebrities, you name it. We have poets, writers, filmmakers, fashion, music, you name it. We are in there. We have everybody we've interviewed. We appreciate everyone going back onto our previous recordings and listening to them. And we definitely focus on the community. Walter, thank you. And you can also follow us at www.thewaltweekly.com, IG and Facebook, The Walt Weekly, Twitter, Walt Weekly, Podbean, The Walt Weekly, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and other free streaming platforms.
Yeah, free.
Free.
There you go.
Have an awesome weekend. Everyone stay safe. God bless.
Thank you.
Good
Yes,
night.
you too.
Thank you.
Good
Many
night.
blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.